in the flesh at the moment is the guy who's become known, I should say, as the Manhunter. So you obviously didn't die in 2004, Colin Sutton.
No, Paul. That's Wikipedia for you, isn't it, really? There was another much more senior police officer in the 80s and early 90s, I think, in the Met called Colin Sutton. He had a Wikipedia entry, and somehow it's been conflated with me. So you've got details of his career, my photographs, and people saying that I died 20 years ago. And the production company I do the documentaries for have tried to get this changed. And for some reason, the Wikipedia won't allow them to edit it and create a new entry for me. So I've stuck with it at the moment, but it keeps me under the radar, doesn't it?
Well, it's interesting. For those of us who have to research interviews in the way that we do, it was a little confusing when I saw it. I thought, I know this guy. For heaven's sakes, I know him from the golf club. And it equally seems strange that knowing you from the golf club, you're packing out theatres all over the country now. What on earth made you so famous, Colin Sutton?
I don't know. Look, I was a policeman. I led the team on two pretty high-profile cases, those of Levi Bellfield and Delroy Grant. And when I retired, when I first retired, I was delivering flowers in Surrey for a florist. I had no plans to do anything, but I had started to write a book. And the reason I wanted to write the book was because I thought the outstanding work that was done by some of the really most talented police officers I ever came across, particularly on the Bellfield investigation, needed recording. And if I didn't write it down, nobody ever would. And it's just sprung from there. And there'd been 2 books, 2 dramas, documentary series. And I just ride the wave while it's there. I haven't really sought any of it out, and I'm very disorganised about planning it for the future, but I just take what comes.
I don't believe a word of that, Colin. You were just telling me that you've actually put the tour that you're just about to embark on together yourself. You haven't got an agent or anything like that, have you?
No, doing the tour, the theatre thing, I knew I wasn't doing any filming for the first half of this year. And I'd been asked a couple of years ago by somebody I know who was doing a takeover week at a theatre in York, and she said, "Would you do a talk, a one-man show, or whatever you want to call it?" So, I've never done one of those before. She said, "Oh, you'll be good. You'll be great." So I had to think about it. And I had some ideas, and then dear old Disc Golf Club had all their clubhouse redone, and they wanted an event to sort of kick off the new clubhouse. And somebody asked me, and I thought, well, that's a good safe space for me to practice in. So I did it there. Did the one up in York, and it all went okay. And I forgot about it for a couple of years. And then back end of last summer, the lady called Megan Gallagher, who is the sort of one of the managers at the Beccles public hall and little theatre or something.
Indeed, yeah.
She emailed me and said, "Do you fancy doing a one-man show here?" So I did it, and we packed the place out, and they opened up the gallery, which they don't normally have open, and it seemed to go down really well. So I thought, well, maybe I could do this. And I just looked at my friends in a tribute band, and the one that organised it all. I looked at all the theatres she was playing, and I emailed them and said, "Look, this is me," and I got 12 bookings out of it. And then I thought, well, okay. So then I went on Wikipedia. And
found out that you were dead.
You found out I was dead, and after I thought, check my pulse rate on my watch, I looked at there's a list of British theatres on there, and all the ones that weren't too big, I emailed them as well, and it's ended up. I think I've got 27 dates. I'm about halfway through. I think I've done 15 of them now.
It's just amazing because people get really upset if they can't actually get to see you. And I've got to mention this actually. I know you're playing at the Thorndon of all places, just up the A140 on the 4th of May, and the comments underneath it from people who are saying, "I can't go. I'm going away." And if you see him advertised anywhere else locally, please let me know. So people really are keen to find out more about DCI Colin Sutton, the Manhunter, as you were dubbed, of course, when Martin Clunes played you on the TV series. And the famous Night Stalker, of course, has made you famous as well, your capture of him. So you're travelling all over the country now. How have you found going on stage? This is a bit different for a policeman, isn't it?
It kind of is. I mean, what I should say, that one in Thorndon at the Village Hall, I've done one in Tippenham, I've done one at Brockdish. In and amongst the sort of theatre gigs, I like to do these ones for local villages or local groups that I do for nothing, so they can make a bit of money towards their charities or towards the upkeep of their village hall or something like that.
That's wonderful.
And that's what the Thorndon one is.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the other one, yeah, it's I don't know, you know, it's. I spent an awful lot of my proper working life supervising and leading police officers, you know, 28 years of it. And you do a lot of briefings in that sort of time, and I've never been too concerned about speaking out and
Public speaking,
I suppose, yeah. And obviously then did the documentary series where, you know, it's not scripted. I know the story because I wrote it, but it's not scripted what I'm going to say. And it's the same with the shows. I've got a PowerPoint where I show a load of photographs, and the photographs are like my triggers. So the show's the same, but it's different every time because I say different words to it every time. And it's been going really well. And I try to make it it's not a criminology lecture because I think that would be dull. I can do that. In fact, I did one this week down at Sussex University. But I want to entertain a bit. So the first, third of it, I talk about how things have changed from when I joined the police service in 1980 to now. And tell a few stories along the way, which are quite amusing, I hope, and people seem to laugh in the right places, and they all come back after half time, so mostly. So that's always a bonus. And then the second half, I do last end of the first half, and all the second half, I do the more sort of gritty stuff about the murder squad, because I was in charge of a murder squad for 9 years, so there's quite a few stories from that as well. And I don't sell anything. I don't sell books or merchandise because I feel grubby enough asking these people to pay to come and see me, but I always meet them, and in some ways that's the best part of it, is the sort of 20 minutes, half an hour after the gig that I spend hanging about either in the foyer or in the auditorium and just meet people who've been good enough to support my books and my documentaries, and they want a handshake or a selfie or me to sign the book that they brought along, and of course I'll do that. And
it's interesting actually, because Trish and I went to see Robin Twigg yesterday. Yeah. He was standing up and doing the life and times of Robin Twigg, and I thought, hang on a second, I just paid 10 quid to see a guy that I can actually meet whenever I want to and have a beer with. It's kind of a bit like you, but of course you now are famous, there is no doubt about it at all, primarily through Delroy Grant and Levi Bellfield and your capture of those horrible people, but also because Martin Clunes played you in the Manhunter. What was that like, seeing yourself portrayed by Martin Clunes?
It was a bit surreal at first. I mean, the hardest thing for me in some ways was when we were doing the script. Was when we were talking. I was talking about ideas with Ed Whitmore, who's the proper script writer that I work with, talking about myself in the third person. Saying I think Colin ought to come in and say, that was a bit weird, and then we've got this sort of fudge where we'd say Martin/Colin, but I mean Martin Clunes was just like he did an amazing job. He's a much more talented actor than he's given credit for, and very versatile. We all know he does comedy really well, and he does sort of semi-comedy like Doc Martin very well, but he did serious subject, and it's. He was not keen to play the part at the start.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it was his production company, or his wife's production company, that made it. And she sort of commissioned it and got it commissioned by ITV. And he'd always said, I don't want to play Inspector so-and-so of the yard with 6 ex-wives and a drink problem. It's too hackneyed. It's too sort of not me. And then Philippa showed him the script, and he said, I'm having that. Because, and I think that's a tribute to Ed and the way that we presented it in a very low key but quite impactful way, and that was the genius of Ed Whitmore, the kind of sequencing of the events and the way that he kept the ebb and flow of the action, and without resorting to car chases and people getting shot. And it was I think a brilliant piece of work, particularly the second one. I was very proud of the Night Stalker one, the 4-episode one. Of course, that got nominated for a BAFTA, and you think, hang on, where's this come from? Things you'd never think would happen to you in your life. And
do people recognise you now? Do you walk along the street in Winfarthing and get people saying, "Oh, you're DCI Colin Sutton"?
Not there, but there are certain places. I mean, if I go, we show dogs, and I go to dog shows, and it happens quite frequently there. I think if you had a Venn diagram, there's probably a great overlap between the people who show dogs and the people who watch true crime documentaries. Yeah, that's the thing.
Here's an interesting thing. I interviewed Chris Amu from The Real Thing earlier on this week, and you were saying you saw him at Crufts, actually.
Yeah, I think we saw him on the telly because he's got hounds and we've got gun dogs. But I saw him on the television with I think he's done very well at Crufts with 2 different breeds of hound, which takes some doing. But most people sort of settle on a breed and stay with it. But
it's a small world with all you famous people, isn't it? Really, you keep bumping into each other. I know. So when did you actually start off? You were at Wimborne, I think. Was your? Oh, you said York, but
yeah, the first one of the tour was Wimborne in Dorset, which was brilliant to go down there. It's a lovely old theatre there, and there was a very big crowd. I think it was 270 odd, which filled the place up virtually. And it's a town that funnily enough, I did some police duty in back in the 80s because I did an attachment to Dorset Police. So I knew the town, know the area well, and they were a great crowd. But I get feedback afterwards, and I have to say it's 99.9% positive. And it comes in through, social media mostly or my email. I put my email address up at the end in case anyone wants to contact me. And I got this lovely...
What, in case they've got a murder they want solved?
Well, funnily enough, that does happen. or I still get people, I had one this week, emailing me and saying that they think they were probably a victim of Levi Bellfield.
Really?
They're still coming out of the woodwork. Yeah. And I just try and pass them on to people who can help them or support them, because obviously there's not much I can do about it now. But Wimborne was good because it was funny because in and amongst the various messages that I got, this lovely woman emailed me and said, I really enjoyed your show. Thank you very much. It's very entertaining. Had a really good night. And she just said, I did attend with my niece, who's 1 or 2 generations younger than us. And she made the point that you should have given a trigger warning that you'll be talking about murder. And I thought...
Why was she there?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's what do you expect, but it's actually worked quite well because I say that now when I do the shows. It's given me another sort of gag to put in because people, and that way I've also solved the problem. I've actually given the trigger warning, but made a bit of a joke about it. But yeah, so but generally the reception's been absolutely fabulous. I mean, it's many places I've got out at the end. Sometimes I've known, sometimes I haven't. But virtually every gig that I've done, there's somebody who knew me through the police who I've worked with who's come along.
Really?
Yeah, so I went to Abergavenny, had 3 there that had worked with me, who had retired back to there. I did a gig in Hoddesdon in Hertfordshire, so I lived in Hoddesdon for quite a long time, so I knew there were a lot of people there that I knew. But people like my sort of second inspector from 1982 to 83, who actually lives up here, I think, in Norfolk or Cambridgeshire somewhere. He came down to Hoddesdon and was there, and I didn't know he was coming, so it's lovely to see him. So it's kind of a bit of it's a bit of a reunion in some ways, I suppose, with people that have been to see me, and it's immense fun. And I try to make in the first bit, even the entertaining, the jokey bit, I try to make the point that essentially, with all the brickbats that get thrown at the police these days, they've actually made some progress over the last 40 years because this is what it was like then. And I even go back beyond that a bit and just try to make that point. It's a journey. We're not at the destination yet, but we're still on that journey.
So none of this planned. You've been dragged out of somnambulance retirement, kicking and screaming to go and spread the stories that the Manhunter promoted through the TV series. You have become very well known now, Colin. There's no doubt at all. I kind of doff my hat to you because it probably wasn't planned, but it's worked out really well for you, I guess. Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, it has. It's as I say, it wasn't planned. I didn't intend any of it, and I was literally delivering flowers for 3 florists in Surrey when I first retired, and I loved it. I had a van and a radio. Everyone was pleased to see me. It was only £8 an hour, but I've got a pension, so it was absolutely fine. And then when I met Ellen, who's now my wife, and I moved up to Thorndon, to Suffolk first of all, I was doing agency contracting investigation work mostly for Trading Standards. I worked for Norfolk County Council for about 18 months. I did about 7 of these contracts with various places. And then out of the blue, somebody wanted me to finish my book and make it into a TV show. And that's what kicked it all off. And as I say, I've just gone with it. and I'll ride the wave for another year or 18 months or 2 years and then fade back to golf. And I probably won't deliver flowers anymore.
Very many congratulations, DCI Colin Sutton, a.k.a. the Manhunter. It's been great having you back on the programme again, and thank you very much indeed for coming into the studio.
Paul, it's been a pleasure, and I wish you well in your retirement, but I bet you won't retire for long either.
Cheers, Colin. Cheers.